Namaskaram to everyone. I think we had a question. Najima, could you please read out the question for us?
How does one get out of the clutches of desires? How does one get out of the clutches of desires?
How does one get out of the clutches of desires? The previous week, we thoroughly analyzed the desire and its various modifications. And then we left ourselves with this question. So how does one get out of the constant onslaught of the mind's desires and what it does to us? So how does one get out of it? Any thoughts? Samyama says focus on higher knowledge. Yeah, ready, Garu?
Guruji, is it when we're talking, how does one get out of clutches of desires? Is it developing the more of intellect, the controlling the emotions? So that's first and most thing where we can able to be rational in every thought comes to debate, discuss, and try to see that whether the desire makes meaning to the life. So the rational approach is talking about intellectualization.
Absolutely. The only way you could get out of the clutches is to approach the mind and its desires with the intellect and wisdom, trying to rationalize it. So every time the mind asks for something, the mind demands something, the intellect must be alert, available, and intervene with the mind's demands.
Yes.
If the intellect doesn't intervene at the right stage, and if the mind bypasses the alertness of the intellect, you're asking for trouble.
That's true.
Yes. So the only way you can come out of the clutches of the desire is to rationalize it. Now, you don't have to kill the desire. You don't have to destroy the desire. To begin with, you can try and appeal to the mind. So the mind is very demanding. The mind is very insistent. It is very adamant. So to begin with, you can perhaps appease the mind. Try to appeal to it, that just try to do without it.
Give little and take more.
Sorry?
Give little and take more. That just always give some carrot to compensate the issue. When there is a conflict comes between the intellect and the mind and desire to curtail or control. So the mind is very strong to drive us towards it. So
Correct.
gives little of that, what mind is thinking, because too stubborn and too resistive also, which repeatedly will bounce back.
Yeah.
At that moment, it may get suppressed, but again, it will come. That means we are not totally controlling the desire, what has been erupting there. That could be my thought understanding.
No, absolutely. In fact, the mind is so adamant that it will find its way. So if you are very forceful, it will start resisting. It will lead to suppression. It will lead to frustration, and you will, in fact, the mind starts playing tricks with you. You think you've conquered, actually you're not conquered. You're actually replaced one desire with other desire. You're just swapping. You have indulgence on one particular thing. You will take some new resolution. You think you're conquered it. What you have done is you replaced it with another indulgence. So the mind actually plays tricks with you. So you can't do it with force. As a law, we understand anything forced is never forceful. So we can't use it through the compulsion. It doesn't work. So what one of the, yeah, I think, okay, let me hear out Ramji. Yes.
Guruji, last week we learned that the desire by itself can be defined as an impulse or an agitation arising out of a lacuna. So I suppose, and the origin is the lacuna, and the lacuna comes out of the lack of contentment or lack of fulfillment, or seeking outward fulfillment of desires instead of inward, instead of exploring what is inside you to fill up your lacuna. So of course intellect is there at a broader level, but does the day-to-day answer lie in managing the lacuna and then trying to do more of internal way of fulfillment? Is there something else that can be done at a day-to-day level by the people? Because at the intellectual level, intellect, I think it is definitely the best way, but it is also tempted quite a lot by the mind. Like it is a fight between intellect and mind, let's say, on a day-to-day basis. But the origin is the lacuna. Origin is the feeling of lacuna in the mind, which gives rise to the desire, right?
Yes.
So should we say that look internally and be content? So I think contentment and having unselfish nature of desires, or diverting the mind towards unselfish targets, is that a better way of managing desires?
So there is no one particular way, and we can't say this is better than the other.
Yeah.
So we'll need to adopt various methodologies. You will have to use your reason and discrimination. You'll have to appeal to the mind. As I said, we got to appease the mind, make the mind feel that, help it realize the folly of what it's asking. So the mind constantly draws you outward. If you can try and talk to the mind and say, my dear, I'll give you what you want, but don't you realize that there is no happiness in it? That kind of It's not a harsh treatment of trying to curtail or deprive or kill whatever the mind asks for. But if you can try to win over the mind, it's like you're trying to talk to a child, yet the child may not listen, but yet you don't want to force the child or whip the child all the time. You'll have to sit with the child, try and understand and make the child feel comfortable with what it wants. You'll get what you want. But do you realize what you are saying? A simple example, other day, we said we'll get some burger in the house, So I said, okay, I went to a store and and I asked, now, do you use any egg or butter in the preparation of the buns? Simple question I asked. He said, yes, sir. All our buns have the egg white, which is used in the preparation of the buns. So instantly we decided, no, we will not have. So the entire dinner was changed. We said, we'll not have it. But then Vaishnavi said, she will want to have. Whatever come may, she'll want to have. And I said, okay. I called her and asked, Vaishnavi, I'm with you. Whatever you think is fine. If you still want to have it, I'll bring a burger for you. But do you think you're comfortable in having egg? I just quietly agreed to her first, won over her, and then asked, are you okay to have egg? No, I am not okay to have egg. Then should I bring for you? No, not required. We'll go for another alternative. Rather than me reasoning with her, I first won over her by asking, I will get for you. I agreed with her first, and then convinced her from her own point of view. You see, so rather than thinking mind, even though we learned that mind is an enemy, you don't have to take it as an enemy. You go along with the mind. There's a fair chance the mind might obey you, mind might listen into you, mind might cooperate with you. Rather than saying you're wrong and I'm going to challenge you, then there's going to be a bullfight. There's a tug of war between the mind and the head, the intellect and the mind. There's a constant conflict, isn't it, Jay? So there are various psychological methodologies you can adopt. Sometimes you punish the mind, sometimes you bribe the mind, sometimes you appease the mind, sometimes you go along with the mind and give it to it on a condition that you will listen to me next time. So the various psychological arguments, but end of the day, you must realize that I wouldn't want to fall a prey to the mind. You shouldn't get into it. You shouldn't fall a prey to it. So this, above all, what we are told is that which gives you a route other than the mind is, as you said, an unselfish cause or a higher cause. So when you envision a cause beyond the mere satisfaction of the insistent demands of the mind, it's like this is one route and another route is to serve, to work, to fulfill a specific cause or an objective in mind. And when you work for a cause which is beyond yourself, mark these words, when you work for a cause, an unselfish cause, a higher cause, what in effect you're doing is you're rising above the object of desire. When you seek a higher cause, what you're doing is you do not seek the object of desire. In fact, you rise above the object of desire. You're not seeking desires. What are you seeking? You're seeking a cause. You're working for a cause. So when you work for a cause, you're not running behind your personal desires or the objects of your desires. Like if my goal is to serve this knowledge, if my goal is to realize myself, if that is the path I've taken, there is that path, and then there is the individuality that is me, isn't it? I must understand that there is this individual that is me, personality Vinay, who has desires. I'm not yet reached that state of realization. So at every point, I got to act in the interest of the cause, not to act to fulfill my personal desires. So when I work for a higher cause, what am I doing? I'm actually rising above the desire and object of my desire, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to every action, you're rising above your own desires and seeking the objects of your desire. This is the practical challenge everyone would have. And the only way you'll rise above your personal desires is how strong does the goal or an ideal inspire you. If the ideal is strong, if the motivation is powerful, you will place the ideal all above yourself. In fact, you cease to exist as far as the cause is concerned. You cease to exist. Your desires and demands don't exist at all. All that matters is the cause. And then what happens miraculously is, as you rise above the object of desire, what happens? Sanjay, what happens, Sanjay, when you rise above the object of desire? I don't know whether you have experienced it.
When you rise above the objects of desire, then the objects of desire come to you automatically.
Absolutely. The object of desire comes to you, seeking you, pleading you, begging you, and say, please enjoy me, please have me. But then what do you do? Abba, now I've got the chance, let me clinch it and enjoy it. No. You don't falter. You say, okay, you wait, I shall see. You don't fall for it, you don't jump at it, you're not with excitement. You just stand apart and say, I have nothing to do with you. That doesn't mean you don't enjoy the world. You enjoy whatever life has to offer, but yet you don't fall a prey to it. So instead of falling a prey, you fall a prey. You don't fall a prey to what the object of desire and your own desires. You become a master. You become the Lord. You become the Isha. Isha means the Lord. You become the Lord of your own mind, the Lord of your desires, the Lord of the objects of desires, the Lord of the world. Yes, Sanjay.
Can I just make one point? So today, sorry, I don't mean to sidetrack, and I hope it's not, but today is Ekadashi. And I just want to make the point that Ekadashi for me, it was something when I was growing up, I didn't really observe it, or I cheated. And in recent years, what I've found is I've been able to monitor my spiritual progress in a way with Ekadashi. Because at the beginning, it was a real challenge just to say, right, no food. I would cheat. I would have probably some Ferrari cake, Ferrari pizza, and, kind of getting past it on a technicality. But now this kind of, as I've been going on this journey, it just feels amazing that now food and other sense objects as well, it feels like at the beginning it was a real challenge. Then it felt like, okay, now I just have to shun them. But now it almost feels like being in that space of I can be with food, I can be amongst other things, but the attachment to that has gone. So it's that difference of just saying, no, I can't eat that, to saying, no, I don't wish to eat that. And it's a very different cognition, because it kind of creates this integrity between the consciousness, the intelligence, the mind, and the body. Whereas before it almost felt like something was disjointed. And when the action was not in line with the consciousness, it was difficult. But as soon as that agitation, that friction was removed, then that same circumstance just landed very differently. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point, that I found Ekadashi to be a very powerful practice related to this, I feel.
Yeah, it's a subjective journey, isn't it? Each one finds a way how you can adopt these principles into your lives, you know. So you check your mind, you put yourself through constant test, you know, that's what Lord Ganesha, you know, had such control over all the food. And Ganesha was someone who had a taste, an appetite for all the lovely food, you know, the sweets and all that. And yet he had such mastery, such perfect control, you know. So there's a beautiful line between, a thin line between enjoying it and never losing control over it. There's a very thin line. And other person wouldn't know. A third person wouldn't know whether you are indulging or you have lost control, or your perfect control rather. No? So it's not quantitative. It's not quantitative at all. You know, if I have one idli, two vada, oh, he's a man of control. A fellow has 10 vadas and 15 idlis. Oh, no self-control. Look at him. And it's not. Quantity doesn't determine it. You know, it's whether, you know. So yes, so that exercise certainly helps you to check on yourself. You know, perfect. That's fine. So the first step is to try and bring in a sense of control over the desire. Second stage would be to transcend the desire. The third stage is to sublimate the desire. The desire itself doesn't exist. Uproot the desire itself. So first is to get a control over it, then try and sublimate it, transcend it, then sublimate it. And all of this is possible only when you stop feeding the desire. And when would you stop feeding the desire? Is only when you envision a goal. So every time you go into action, you ask yourself, what are you acting for? It's not what we do, it is for what we are doing. Am I doing just to merely satisfy my own interests, or am I working towards a cause I believe in? And a cause is always beyond yourself. So you're not doing anything to satisfy your own selfish, egoistic interests. This is how you get over the clutches of your desires. Aparagaru. Sir, we can't hear you.
Guruji,
Yes,
I wanted to know what exactly is fulfilling the desire. Is it a mind, or is it the sense organs? So suppose if I like any sweet like gulab jam or something like that, I start eating, I am craving for it and I eat. But all of a sudden, something tells me that enough is enough now, stop. So what exactly is satiating my hunger? And what exactly is fulfilling my desire? Which part, either it's a sense organ, mind, or intellect, what exactly is doing that?
So the question you're asking is,
how is a desire fulfilled? What is telling that, yes, it is now fulfilled now?
like going with the example of gulab jamun, you have a desire to eat gulab jamun, you go to a store and you start eating. There is a temporary satiation. Temporarily satisfied. I think I've had enough. You can have 2, 3, 4, or a box full. You've had what you want. Temporarily satiated. But what is satisfied is the mind. Obviously, there's a limit to your physical capacity, the senses, the palate, and also how much you can consume. That apart, what actually is satisfied is the agitation. If you recall, we said last week the desire itself is an impulse or an agitation. Obviously, it arises from a void, that apart, but the desire is an agitation. So when that agitation gets fulfilled, you get satisfied temporarily until the next desire that starts becoming an instrument of agitation for you. Oh, I've had gulab jamun. Now, oh, I haven't gone for a movie for a long time. Let me go for a movie. You go for a movie. Then what? Something else. Then something else. Something else keeps on coming. So you're just trying to give in to the desire and trying to satisfy the agitations that the desire presents.
So this
Not-
agitation,
Not
Sorry.
dealing with the, sorry, not dealing with the root cause. You get it?
yeah. So this agitation is happening within the mind. Am I right?
Yes.
So I have another question, Guruji. So is thought manifestation of inputs from the sense organs, or are there any other ways a thought can be manifested?
Could you come again? Sorry.
Is a thought, thought is manifested through the inputs from the sense organs, or in any other way?
So there is something called as a chronology of action. The thought crops up in the intellect first. The thought crops up in your intellect and it manifests in the intellect. And where does it come? Is because it comes from a vasana. A vasana is nothing but an unmanifest thought. So the unmanifest thought manifests as a thought in the intellect. It manifests as desire in the mind and actions at the physical level. So if you have a vasana, for example, you have vasana to watch football. The vasana for football manifests as a thought. That thought doesn't manifest in person who doesn't have a vasana for football. Example, let's say I don't have a vasana for football. The thought doesn't come into me. So let's say you have a vasana for football. The thought manifests in you. So when you want to watch television, you instantly go on to the sports channels and you're searching for which football match is happening where. Or you actually have kept track which tournament is happening where, who's playing whom, at what time the match starts, what is happening in that football sport, because you have a vasana for your captain. So even when you read in the newspaper, you instantly go to that particular section. You don't read about kabaddi, you don't read about golf, because you have no interest in kabaddi or golf. You have interest in only football. So that thought manifests as desire. So you make yourself available, even if it means you have to wake up in the VRs. You want to watch the English Premier League. And the match is only airing at 2 a.m. Indian time. So you'll get up at 2 a.m. You'll put an alarm. You never got up at 4 o'clock, but you'll get up at 2 o'clock to watch the English Premier League. And then you are in front of the TV, glued to the television. You have satisfied your desire.
So Guruji, so the sense organs are helping you to satisfy the desire. Can I take that one? Because I'm fulfilling my desire by watching television or something like that.
Sense organs is the final fructification. It's a final manifestation of a desire. So you can say it's the manifestation of desire.
Oh. Thanks, Guruji.
All right. Yeah. Most welcome. A couple of comments. Yes, Hariji, you wanted to say something earlier? You're good? Okay. Right. Soumya was asking, Guruji, can we say like this, if we deviate and concentrate only on our Swadharma, other desires will not be entertained by the mind. Like my Swadharma is music. If I concentrate on developing music, other desires, I may not be interested. It's strictly not right to say that, because you also have other desires. You also have other vasanas. So your mind is not going to stick to your Swadharma. Your mind can ask for anything. Your mind entertains various desires. So Swadharma is nothing but a predominant of your nature, predominant of your vasanas. But your mind can entertain anything. There is no direction or dimension what your mind can ask for. So you got to be very careful what your mind asks. So Swadharma only gives you the field of activity, what you do. But we are talking about for what are you doing. So when we talk of an ideal or a cause or a purpose, it is going beyond your own selfishness, going beyond your own self-centeredness, I and my. You go beyond that. Okay, ma? All right. Okay. So let's, the last we did was 27, am I right? So 28, please. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmuktaha bhajante mam drudhavrataha. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmuktaha bhajante mam drudhavrataha. Now, in continuation to what we learned in 27, he says, but those men, sorry, of virtuous deeds, whose sins have come to an end, freed from delusion of the pairs of opposites, they worship me with resolve. Now, just to understand this, just Gayatrima, just can you share the translation of 27, please? 27, O Bharata, by the delusion of the pairs of opposites arising from desire and aversion. If you recall, we said acting on the likes and dislikes, you are subjected through delusion because of the pairs of opposites. The world doesn't meet your desire and aversion. All the beings are subjected to illusion. Now in 28, he says, but those men of virtuous deeds whose sins have come to an end. So these virtuous people, he says, they are not leading a sinful life. Their sins have come to an end. Now I'll come to the explanation. Freed from the delusion of the pairs of opposites, they worship me with resolve. Drudhavrataha. Drudham. Drudham means a firm resolve. They worship me. They keep doing namaskar. Namaskar is worshipping. They seek the self. So he's exactly saying the opposite of what 27 said. Those men of virtuous deeds whose sins have come to an end. Now, when does one commit a sin? Sin is nothing but a mental agitation, sir. Again and again we have said, sin is a mental agitation. And when does one experience a mental agitation? A mental agitation is experienced when, in the context, when does one commit a sin? Ushama, when does one commit a sin?
When your desires are not met. when your consciousness is not active and you just fulfill whatever you want to without listening to your conscience.
What did we say in verse 27, Ma? Do you recall?
But because of mental agitation,
one is subjected through delusion and illusion because the world, which has the pairs of opposites, doesn't meet into your likes
to
and
your
dislikes.
likes and dislikes. Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, my question is, when does one commit a sin?
When you
When
don't
does
accept,
one?
when you don't accept whatever is the world is offering. I mean, you want to fulfill your own.
Who am I to accept what the world is offering? You think the world cares what I accept or not?
No, it's not
The world
that.
doesn't care.
Yes, that is true. But
I am agitated. The question is, why am I agitated? Agitation is a sin. Are we right?
yes, yes.
Why am I agitated? Simple question.
Because I'm not able to accept those opposites which the world is offering. Or my choices are wrong. They will not.
In the answer, how many ors you have used? Multiple choice going on or what? Or going on. This is not right. This is very unfair.
No, Guruji, different thoughts are coming. That's what I'm trying to express.
Yeah. Now, in fact, when you operate on likes and dislikes, remember we very strongly clarified in the 27th verse how that the text, the Gita, various sections highlights that your own likes and dislikes are your enemies.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
So therefore, we are constantly told not to act on our likes and dislikes. So when you act on our likes and dislikes, the world doesn't fit into your mental expectations, the mental frame.
Yes.
You are agitated. You commit a sin, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So you commit a sin when you operate on your likes and dislikes.
Likes and dislikes. Okay.
Simple, straightforward thing. Yes. So repeat that, Ma.
A sin, you commit a sin because you operate on your own likes and dislikes.
You like something.
So I want it. I will do it.
But the world may not agree to you.
Yeah.
And that causes agitation. You have committed a sin. Now, in the 28th verse, he says, but those virtuous men, the men of virtuous deeds, whose sins have come to an end. What do you mean sins have come to an end? Means there is no more mental agitation.
Yeah. Because
Shivaji. Okay, Ma? Ushama?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So, Shivaji, when does sins come to an end?
When you raise about the likes and dislikes, raga, dvesha. When you are able to identify this is out of raga and dvesha and I don't have to act on it, you rise above that. Then yes, you have gained control over it.
You rise above the likes and dislikes. And what do likes, when you act on likes and dislikes, what are you seeking? So people who operate on likes and dislikes, what are they seeking?
They are actually creating more sin.
So that is enough in effect. But what are they seeking when you're operating on likes and dislikes?
They think that once they fulfill it, they feel that they'll get out of it. working on your likes or dislikes?
No, sir. My simple question is, when you're acting on likes and dislikes, what are you seeking? When you're, same thing, when you're operating on the mind, what are you seeking?
To fulfill, when you operate, you fulfill whatever you.
No, I don't think you're able to. The answer is not difficult. Only thing is you're not able to get what I'm saying, what I'm seeking. The question is, when you act on likes and dislikes, what are you seeking? What do they seek?
Fulfillment.
That's too strong a word, fulfillment. What are you seeking? Hariji, what are you seeking?
My peace and happiness.
Also a very strong word. Too strong.
Happiness. That's why I am unhappy. So I am seeking for objects outside.
That can be applied to anybody.
Yeah.
Every being is seeking happiness. But when a person is acting on likes and dislikes, what is he seeking? I'm connecting likes and dislikes to sin. So in between likes and dislikes and sin, there's something in between. A person who acts on likes and dislikes, what is he seeking? Sitaramji is close. What did you say, Sitaramji?
I said gratification. So you have immediate sense of gratification that your desires have been fulfilled.
You are seeking instant pleasures.
Yeah.
You are falling for immediate pleasures. And any act you do to seek for instant pleasures, you commit a sin. Reddy Garu, looks like you are able to connect the dots.
Yes, Guruji.
So the mind entertains likes and dislikes. The likes and when you operate on likes and dislikes, we are saying you are seeking instant pleasure, immediate pleasure. You want immediate gratification. And that immediate sense gratification or instant joys compels you to do something sinful. And thereafter, the sin is a mental agitation. In the context, we're saying any instant pleasure causes guilt. Like Sanjay was saying, he was having, what were you having? Ferrari cake and Ferrari pizza. So when I come to London, I am going to ask, you're going to buy me Ferrari cake and Ferrari pizza, both.
I also should ask Guruji for taking a ride in the Ferrari.
That is, I am only starting here, sir. But then
So
first let Sanjay buy a
going
Ferrari then. Sanjay, do you drive a Ferrari bar?
No Ferrari car.
Okay, so we shall pray you get a Ferrari car also. Then that also is fulfilled. Ferrari cake, Ferrari pizza, and Ferrari drive. Finished. One shot will satisfy all the three desires. So, what were we saying? What were we saying?
Likes and dislikes, which will lead to sin. I mean to say, when in instant gratification, which will be fulfilled.
Instant gratification. Okay. So, what is the opposite of instant gratification?
So, contentment. No idea.
No idea, no problem. Rajima, what would be the opposite of sense gratification or instant pleasures?
Paripurna. The feeling of paripurna.
That's a state, isn't it?
Yes.
We're still talking about a path. start talking about, I don't fall for instant pleasures,
Sense control.
You have a sort of control over your senses. You practice what is known as tapas. Tapas is conservation of your energy. Remember, beautiful. You must constantly remember tapas. Tapas is the sap of a spiritual man. If you don't do tapas, there is no spiritual growth. And what is tapas? Aparagaru. Write down, sir. I don't know whether you have heard this definition. Tapas has two essential ingredients, two essential aspects. One aspect of tapas is conservation of your energy. We're talking of mental energies here. The conservation of your mental energy, which is dissipated through sensual indulgences. So you curtail sensual indulgences so that you conserve that energy. So many things, especially let's say you are in a city where it's a city which is buzzing with activities. Just because there's so many things happening in the city, you keep going to everything that's happening in the city. Indulgences, dissipation of energy. There is exhibition going on. There is convention going on. There is IPL match going on. There is this going on. There's that going on. Everywhere I'll go. I go here, I go there, everything. What is happening? Energy is dissipated, wasted. What tapas are you going to do? No tapas. So first element is to withdraw. Withdraw from these activities where your energy is unnecessarily dissipated. And having conserved, you redirect those thought forces to the higher. Reinvest your resources into the attainment of the higher. That is tapas. That is the opposite of falling a prey for immediate sense gratification. There's not an equivalent one word opposite. It's philosophically, you can say tapas, but then tapas is so rich. Are you following Aparagaru?
Yes, Guruji.
Both the elements, conservation and
Withdraw.
Conservation through withdrawal, and then redirecting those thought forces to the higher.
To the right. Yeah.
To the right activities.
Right.
And perfect. So that's what in the verse he says. So these virtuous men whose sins have come to an end, they are freed from the delusion of the pairs of opposites. They are freed. There is no further delusion. The world doesn't cause any delusion because they are not falling a prey to the temptations of the world. They're not falling a prey to the opposites of the world. They are withdrawn within. They are practicing tapas, as we said. They worship me with firm resolve. Drudhavrata. They worship, steadfast in their pursuit. They don't get carried away with the world. You know what Nachiketa did in the text Kathopanishad. He went up to Lord Yama to know the truth, none other than the Lord of Death himself, because he didn't want to die in midway during the pursuit of the truth. This fellow, if he has to kill me, at least he'll answer me and then kill me, no? So he went up to the Lord of Death himself first, and he said, "You answer me, and then if I have to go, we'll see that later." Look at that purpose. Look at that resoluteness, firm resolve. So there is no more impulsive activity. There is no more activity driven on the mind's likes and dislikes. So you grapple this knowledge. I don't know, it's not mere intellectualization, sir. It is a real, this is a life of a person who does tapas. this is seen in a man who lives a life of tapas. Vis-a-vis, you're just swayed by trying to fulfill your incessant likes and dislikes. Yeah, running behind it. Sitaramji, you wanted to clarify something?
Well, actually, the moment has passed. In the sense that when we talked of the Ferrari, the cake or whatever, what I said, it occurred to me at that time that was the classic way how desires go forward. First, we like the little one. Once that is fulfilled, we want a higher one. So first the Ferrari cake, then the Ferrari pizza, then the ride in the Ferrari. That's the order of ascendance. That's what I want to say there.
Who? For whom?
No. That conversation went, when Sanjay was talking of Ferrari cake, and we said, okay, I'll
No,
come.
my appeal to you is don't make it your own.
No.
No, we can just mention it now. Oh yeah, there's no harm. Next month I'm going to London. I must explore what this Ferrari cake and Ferrari pizza is. No. Let's say you happen to be London next month. What you'll remember more is not of the London trip, is just the Ferrari cake and the pizza. This is what you're going to watch out, how the world enters into your mind. Oh my God, the world enters into you and then finds a route there, and then you fall a prey to it, isn't it? Okay. Right, sir. Yes. Yes, Sushma.
Guruji, I was wanting to earlier come in when you were asking about sin. That when you said, when do you commit a sin? I thought it is when we have earlier learned, when you don't listen to your conscience and you're going against your conscience, then you're committing a sin.
Yes.
Your conscience will always guide you whether you're right or not wrong.
Indeed, yes. But just trying to be in the context of discussion. So the very same concept of sin can also be explained this way.
Okay.
As we also said, anyone who falls a prey for instant pleasures, what does he feel after committing that act? Doesn't he feel a sense of guilt or regret, or doesn't he feel remorseful of his act?
That is because his conscience tells him that you've done something wrong.
Absolutely. So there is a connect. I'm only trying to say there is a connect, but we are slightly describing it in a different angle, keeping the context in mind. So if you extend it, it's one of the same thing. It's other side of it. Okay. So you actually reveal the hidden side of it for all of us. Thanks to you. Okay, ma.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you, ma. 29. Now, before we go to 29, I want to comment on what Sanjay said. Hold on, Gayatri ma. What did you say, Sanjay?
In the comment,
yep,
the chat,
yes.
That was the response to what's the opposite of immediate gratification is delayed gratification for some future, more permanent benefit.
How do you get that?
How did I get to that?
No. How do you get to that permanent benefit?
Okay, so for me, we get to that benefit by understanding where true happiness, where true bliss is, where true bliss resides in the higher, in self-realization.
No, Sanjay, I think I'm not going on that track.
Okay.
We're talking, we spoke just now about falling a prey to temptations, instant pleasures, right? And once you take that route, there is no real joy. You've lost that, isn't it? Now, the opposite of that is, where is real joy? I thought you were getting there. The real joy lies in one word answer, not tapas. Tapas is one angle we said. The real joy lies in, if there is no joy in instant pleasures, where does the joy reside? Wrong answer, Rajima. See, when you are seeking instant pleasures, are you not indulging? Now the question is, what is opposed to indulgence? It's fascinating that the philosophy behind it is fascinating. The more you indulge in anything, you lose the joy in object or being, isn't it? Remember the law of neutralization and the law of diminishing value. The law of neutralization and the law of diminishing value come in and kick in. You come to a point that there's no more joy in the object of enjoyment. So Sanjay, I'm asking, what is the opposite of indulgence here? Any idea? Think aloud. No problem. Vasantama, what is the opposite of indulgence? What was yesterday? Sanjay, listen to Vasantama. She came home yesterday and she was saying yesterday was Ekadashi, which is today for you because of the sheer time zone. All right. Okay. Now she comes to us and says, yesterday what were you doing, Vasantama?
Fasting.
Whole day she fasted. End of the day she came and she gave a little bit of energy to us and she went. Whole day she fasted and she gave a little energy to us and went. And we have been whole day eating, forgetting it was Ekadashi. Please forgive Sanjay for that. Vasantama, please forgive. But we were indulging. And she came with so much of food to us. Please indulge further. But she was doing fasting. Now, what were you doing when you're fasting? Controlling, no doubt. The opposite of indulgence is abstinence. You're abstaining from sense control. You're controlling. You're abstaining from the contacts of the senses, isn't it?
Yes.
So, therefore, what we are trying to establish is the more you indulge, you lose the joy. The more you abstain,
the more you abstain, the more you lose that joy. I mean,
the more you indulge, you lose the joy. The more you abstain,
you grow.
You revel in bliss. Abstinence is bliss. Indulgence is sorrow. Remember this. Any indulgence leads you to sorrow. In the Gita elsewhere he says, sense objects, he calls them as wombs of sorrow, he says. Dukkha yonaya. He calls any sensual indulgences as wombs of sorrow. Womb, 9 months. After 9 months is only sorrow. So it is future sorrow, man. Watch out. So any sense indulgence is future sorrow. So abstinence is infinite bliss. Complete abstinence, complete bliss. Now, what's the thin line you can draw? How much of abstinence you can get into? How much of contact with the world you can get into? That's your choice. The more you are drawn out into the world, you get neutralized. You get to a point of saturation. You get acclimatized. There is no joy in it. But the moment you withdraw, there's bliss. Correct, huh?
Withdraw, then again you go higher, then again you withdraw, you gain more knowledge. Yes.
Correct. Perfect. Right. Sorry, I was just drawn into that concept, seeing what Sanjay had wrote. Okay. Right. Let's move on. 29, please. Jara marana mokshaya mamashritya yatanti ye te brahma tadvidu kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. Jara marana mokshaya mamashritya yatanti ye te brahma tadvidu kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. Those who strive for liberation from old age and death, taking refuge in me, they realize in full that Brahman, Adhyatma, the individual self, and all karma action. Those who strive for liberation from old age and death, old age and death are just referring to the metamorphic changes we all are subjected through. What are the metamorphic changes all beings are subjected through? Birth, growth, disease. Thank you, Gayatri Ma. Birth, growth, disease, decay, death. And all these 5 metamorphic changes, when we go through. Subhashi, what is the common thing in all these 5 changes, sir?
The common thing is that it is a change of state.
Perfect. It's a change of state. And what does the change of state do to us?
Change of mind state also at that time, because mind is changing now continuously. It is withdrawing from the worldly life and going towards the this true divine, to seek true realization, self-realization.
We're not talking of seeking realization here. I'm talking of the birth, growth, disease, decay, death. This is any human being goes through this, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
As you rightly said, what is common in all these 3 stages, all these 5 stages, all through the phase of life, is the flux of change. Everybody goes through the change. And my question is, when you are subjected to change, what does it create?
Fear.
Fear.
Fear of the old age and fear of the
Sorry, sir, I don't know what it is now. Because little bit youth is still left in me, no? What to do? I can't blame that, isn't it? That's where I am. But as you said, it's common in all of the changes: birth, growth, disease, decay, death. What all of them go through change, and any change creates pain, creates sorrow, creates suffering. That is common in all of them. Birth, isn't it painful, sir?
But
Such a painful exercise. The moment you're born, you're crying. You have to adapt to the new environment, the world you're born into. Everything is so unique and new. You are in the comforts of the womb, but you come out is all new. Then growth. Every phase of growth is a pain, isn't it?
yes,
Every phase of life. You have to
overcome all those pains and
all those pain. Any growth is pain. You're being promoted from the 5th standard to the 6th standard. From the 10th standard, from the school, you've gone to college. From the college to degree. Every phase of change or growth is pain. Wisdom tooth coming also is pain. I don't know why they call it wisdom tooth. Anybody can explain? Is there a sudden birth of wisdom in you? I don't know. Anybody can throw light? Ramji, can you throw light? Why is it called wisdom tooth? It's called wisdom teeth, no? But why is it so, sir? Subhash ji, aapko pata hai?
no idea, sir.
I don't know, sir. So I
Sir,
got rid of it 2 years
wisdom
back.
wisdom satsang पे आ रहे हैं, आपको wisdom के बारे में पता नहीं है, ये कैसे हो सकता है?
I got rid of it 2 years back. After that only I joined Wisdom Foundation courses.
So that no. So what are you implicating, sir? No, that is, I'm afraid now, bhaya maar kya hai, to know what that implication is.
No, you have to get rid of you have to detach yourself from some of those appendages to
Correct,
get into wisdom.
Get into wisdom.
Yeah.
Sir, but you're smartly distracting us from the question. Why is it called wisdom teeth, sir? Now I know. Now I know why you're distracted us. So I don't know why it's called a wisdom tooth. We've got to figure it out. So wisdom tooth coming is a pain. Every growth is a pain, isn't it? In fact, we see our younger days when we all went to school from kindergarten or the first to the second. After our summer holidays, we want to go back to the same old classroom. When we are being promoted to the next class, it's a different classroom. We are attached. We are crying. People are crying because you're going to a new class. Growth is painful.
So there is the poet says that राही मनवा दुख की चिंता क्यों सताती है, दुख तो अपना साथी है, सुख है इच्छाओं ढलती आती है जाती है, दुख तो अपना साथी है. That means throughout life it is the dukh which is with you, not the sukh. Sukh comes and goes.
Sir, I can see the effect of Sanskrit classes very well, sir.
No.
Looks like we also we also have to enroll for Sanskrit classes.
No, sir, this is Hindi, sir. This is not Sanskrit.
No, I know it's Hindi, but what can you say that again? Who said that?
This is actually a film song.
Film song.
But it is
sir,
very
filling song. A song must be sung. If you tell in prose, how can we understand?
No.
Please sing, sir.
राही मनवा दुख की चिंता क्यों सताती है, दुख तो अपना साथी है, सुख है एक छाँव ढलती आती है जाती है, दुख तो अपना साथी है. This is from an old movie called Dosti. Very beautiful meaning.
Sir, I don't know the meaning, but you have sung so beautifully, sir.
No.
Very nice. Yeah. So what are you conveying in that, sir?
It says that the pain and sorrow is there from birth till the end. It is your sathi. It is there with you all through life. But happiness comes and goes. It is not a permanent thing.
Correct. So philosophically, poetically,
Yeah.
life has taught us that fundamental lesson that every phase of life which goes through the metamorphic changes, what is common is pain and sorrow and suffering. So those who strive for liberation through this constant flux of change, that's interpretation. Those people are rare, he says. Those who strive for liberation from old age to death means these are the rare kinds of people who rise above the constant flux of change which caused through sorrow and suffering, which the world is inflicted through. These people, these virtuous men, remember in the previous mantra, the verse, he said, these virtuous men who have ended their sin, they have destroyed their life. They are not leading a life of sinful. They removed the sin. They're not sinful. Having freed from sin, they are seeking liberation. Only a rare one, he says, seeks the liberation. They take refuge in me and they realize the whole Brahman, Atman and Karma. So what is the relationship between Brahman, Adhyatma, the Atman, the individual self, and Karma, action? They realize it, he says. Now, what is that connection between Brahman, Atman, and action? We'll come back and see. But if you put it into perspective, just to even quickly summarize, the 27th verse said, those who operate on likes and dislikes are subjected through delusion and illusion because they are caught up in the trap of raga, dvesha, desire and aversion. They are committing a sin. In the 28th verse, he said, those who, the deeds, the virtuous deeds, they have come to an end because they don't operate on raga, dvesha. They are freed from the delusion. They worship the higher, means they seek a path of higher. With firm resolve. And then he says, such people, those who strive with that firm resolve, they are not subjected through, or they transcend the constant onslaught of change and sorrow and suffering. They rise above this change and suffering, and they seek liberation. And they understand they realize the whole, the Brahman, Atman, and Karma. So it's a beautiful connection. What's the connection between Brahman, Atman, and Karma? We'll come back to it. I think there is a small announcement as to when we'll come back. Rajima.
Namaskaram. Since Guruji will be shortly embarking on chapter 8, we request you all to promote and invite friends and family to join the satsang and enrich themselves. This is also to inform you all that next Sunday, the 6th of March, the Bhagavad Gita class has been cancelled. We apologize for any inconvenience caused. Hari Om, over to you, Guruji, for the Shanti Mantra.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.